Great Bear Enterprises presents Mark Lerner in this week's Astrology, Tarot, and Numerology session.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the second edition of Mark Lerner Astrology, Tarot, and Numerology. This is now March the 12th, 2025. In numerology, what's called the universal day vibration, you add 3 plus 12 and 2025. And when you do all that, you get number 24, and you reduce that, and you've got 6. And so from the field of numerology, you want to be thinking the ancient Star of David, the Seal of Solomon, 6-pointed star. Think of how bees make their honeycombs in hexagonal shapes. Think of the hexagon on the top of Saturn that we've discovered through different satellite explorations in the solar system, which is quite fantastic. Also 6 to the Pythagoreans back in Crotona, Italy. About 2,500 years ago, there were Pythagorean spheres of harmony of the spheres and numbers. 6 is considered the first perfect number because its divisors, 1, 2, and 3, which equally divide into 6, add up to 6. In Pythagorean numerology on a spiritual level, the next perfect number beyond 6 is 28. We want to study that. That's pretty fascinating. I'm going to read a couple symbols. Actually, these cards are the same cards that I did before during the introduction, which was on February 27th at the Pisces new moon. But what I'm going to do, I want to focus on Venus, the fact that recently on March the 1st, Venus appeared from the Earth's viewpoint to go in reverse. It always does this every year and a half for 6 weeks. It's going to come out of reverse on April the 12th, which is a Saturday, on the day of a very powerful full moon, often known as the Shambhala festival, focusing on the will of the divine. On April 12th, Venus will go direct. So I want to read 3 symbols in a moment, but first I'm going to shuffle the cards. And I'm going to read 3 symbols from Dane Rudhyar's fantastic book, An Astrological Mandala, The Cycle of Transformations and the 360 Symbolic Phases, which is a reinterpretation of the Sabian symbols presented as a contemporary American I Ching. My main male teacher in astrology was Dane Rudhyar. My main female teacher was Eleanor Bach. What's amazing in this particular book, the paperback by Dane Rudhyar, is on the front is a 6-pointed star, kind of coming up out of clouds and out of the universe in a kind of yin-yang I Ching symbology. So it's interesting that today is a number 6 vibration. Again, it is March the 12th. So what I'm going to do now is literally shuffle these cards and, shall we say, evoke the symbols and majesty of Venus. Again, I wrote a book called Mysteries of Venus. It's out of print. Published it myself back in 1986. So this is, I wanted to show you how literally, spontaneously, I'm shuffling the cards, and whatever comes up, this is a Venus reading for all of us in our own individual lives, for your desires, your wishes, your hopes, even your fears, challenges and opportunities. We're all going through a very powerful Venusian cycle. You may be hearing so many different things, and if you're an in-depth student of astrology, tarot, numerology, you already know there are tremendous outer planet movements, particularly Uranus shifting from Taurus into Gemini, Neptune and Saturn both shifting from Pisces into Aries, Pluto just recently having gone into Aquarius. And a lot of that is online, and you see different images and stories about that, some of which are very accurate, others are a little bit embellished. So at any rate, here is a dynamic energy, and Venus has been a very important principle in my life. And at any rate, there's the shuffling. So this is the Aquarian Tarot deck. I mentioned this previously a year or two ago when I created a first reading. I think it was over 30 minutes. I talked all about the Aquarian Tarot. I gave the chart for this, and I brought this deck to Findhorn in Scotland. I was 26 and a half years ago in November of 1976. That was about 4 and a half years after I got into astrology. I was able to bring this deck, and I bought it at a very unique time deliberately to create a kind of mystical, spiritual, higher level attunement, and at Samuel Weiser bookstore in Manhattan before I went to Scotland. At any rate, so there's me actually shuffling it right now. I'm going to keep the cards face down. I'm not doing a long reading. I just want you to be able to see this as a symbolism. So here's the first card coming out, which would represent, shall we say, for all of us, the recent past. This card that I just pulled out now would be the now for all of us, and then the third card is the near future. And in this particular way that I'm doing it, the fourth card would represent synthesis and where we all are going kind of in the days and weeks and months ahead, also as a synthesis. So you just saw me do this, and hopefully you'll be able to see all this. So here are the cards. This is all relating to Venus, as far as I'm concerned. I have no idea whether there'll be major cards or not. Seven of Pentacles, and I'll move these in a moment, is the first card. The Knight of Rods, then another Knight, the Knight of Pentacles, and the last card is the Five of Swords. So one of the things you'll be hearing about, or if you're a student of astrology yourself, I am not a person who focuses on creating fear for my clients and friends and associates about retrograde motion. I think actually when planets go retrograde, whether it's Mercury 3 times a year, Venus, which does it again in this cycle for 6 weeks in a row, every year and a half. And the outer planets, for instance, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, go in reverse for 4 to 5 months every year. So I believe that when planets are going in reverse, which is an apparent motion, they are only doing it in reverse from the Earth's point of view because we're the third planet from the sun. I'm not saying it's insignificant whenever a planet is in reverse. It's always wise to be reviewing and reflecting and reevaluating about the planet's principles. Nevertheless, I don't believe that Earthlings should be creating fear around retrograde motions, and I actually believe that when planets are apparently retrograde, they're actually stronger in their own mode, in their own realm, shall we say, because they're going in counterpoint to the sun and moon's direction. I realize this is sort of different from a lot of what you hear about online and a lot of the great books that have been written about astrology. Nevertheless, these are the cards, so I'm just going to put this out. So we've got the Seven of Pentacles. Let me hold these up so that you can see them more closely. So here's the Seven of Pentacles in the Aquarian Tarot deck. So you see, looks like a woman calming a swan, a duck, and then seeing 7 pentacles appearing, and there's a white blue sky. And so this feels very sensitive and calming. Pentacles are the suit that relate to the earth and practical reality. 7 is always considered a spiritual number one way or another. And then the middle card is more on what I would call on an ethereal level, because this is not earthly. You'll see the sky is white. And here is a knight. Knights in all the different tarot decks pretty much represent, whether we want to see them as male or female, someone on a mission. They may be on horseback or knight, but they're a strong figure, okay? It's beyond the pages. In suit cards, you get a page, a knight, a queen, and a king in the 4 different suits. So the knight is a very powerful figure. Think of the jack in regular playing cards to some extent. And this feels to me as if somebody has a rod, which can be considered a magical wand. So being on a kind of journey for all of us right in the moment, we all have our powerful will energy that's blossoming, and that's the magic wand that we all have to create our reality. This is all moving, interestingly enough, in the near future, picking up on the pentacle theme. By the way, Venus makes a 5-pointed star in our zodiac, and this was discovered ages ago by Rudolf Steiner, who was one of my first teachers in spirituality, in our zodiac. And I shared 2 recent podcasts. I do these podcasts that are called Astrology in 5, and I've done 58 of them. So the last 2 I did was on number 57 and 58. I created them about a month and a half ago, all about the power of Venus, this retrograde cycle, but that what happens is every 8 years, the Sun and Venus make these different conjunctions, both in terms of Venus being retrograde and Venus being direct. And they form a 5-pointed star in our zodiac. So there are a lot of people I see online that are now putting that out, but this comes out of Rudolf Steiner and his work in Anthroposophical Society and his focus on a lot of the spiritual themes, and particularly the power of Venus as it moves in a 5-pointed star pattern in our zodiac. So these pentacles that are coming up, they may not seem directly related to what you might conceive of Venus, but they are definitely Venusian. And so I think it's fascinating that the third card is a Knight of Pentacles, taking the 7 of Pentacles, and 7 we know is spiritual in many ways, and then taking that energy, which I see as a Venusian pentagram, and moving that outward into the world. And so now this figure in armor, which is the Knight of Pentacles, I love David Palladini's pictures from the Aquarian Tarot. I think I told all of you that a long time ago, brought this to Findhorn, and then when I came back, he was living in New York. He had done this as an artistic project. He didn't really know a whole lot about spirituality, and I decided to call him, did a reading for him with this particular deck that he had created. I think we did a 10-card reading. He was pretty much blown away, and then his wife opened up this closet where there are several hundred Aquarian Tarot decks, and he gave me one of those, and I have actually 2 other Aquarian Tarot decks. So any rate, I find this to be a very beautiful symbol here, taking the pentagram, which is a Venusian symbol, okay, as I said, Venus itself, every 8 years, due to Sun, Venus, Earth alignments, when Venus is either retrograde or direct, over an 8-year period, makes a pentagram. We think of it as an upright pentagram in the Earth zodiac. And it takes that whole pentagram 1,800 years approximately to make one full circle retrograde through the Earth zodiac. So anyway, these are the cards. They're for all of us, okay? 7 of Pentacles. If I didn't show this, I want to be clear about this. Hold on a second. Let me do this if I can. And of course it doesn't want to do it. Anyway, to make this a little bit clearer so you can see it, the Knight of Rods or Wands, magical wands. So those are the 3 basics. And what's happening is we get a 5. We get a pentagonal type of number, but this is the swords. And we know that in the world at the moment, I mean, unless you're living under a rock, in the United States, around the world, there isn't any area that is not filled with troubling vibrations. So we see these clouds. 5 swords represent often conflict. A lot of the sword cards can be fantastic, like the Ace of Swords in many decks is related to the Arthurian legend, the sword and the stone. And a lot of the cards in the sword suit represent complexities and challenges. Certainly, swords often represent the power of the mind. And 5 is a number of change, okay? So we see 2 crossed swords in the foreground here, and we see a figure which looks like a kind of knight figure carrying 2 swords, about to pick up another one, which we could relate to the Arthurian legend. There's that sword that's vertical. The person is contemplative. There are 2 figures in the distance. And there's more than half the card represents storm clouds. And so this is all part of the struggles that we're all facing. So I find this is a very beautiful reading to me. And I will be doing other ones. And in a moment, I'll sort of close this. But I wanted you to see my process of simply turning over cards. I don't work with upside down cards, having created 2 tarot decks, Inner Child cards with Isha Lerner and Baseball Tarot with Laura Phillips, and working closely with the artists. Just like a lot of my literary heroes and so on, I would never overjudge them in any way. I try to understand things from whether it's a philosopher or a writer and an artist from the work that they're doing. So I think later on, after the Tarot came out, particularly in the late 1300s in France, and over the last, it's like 600 plus years, we now have a lot of modern researchers and often say, well, if the card is upside down, it means this or that. I just don't go for that. I guess it's the same reason why I don't feel we want to create fear about planets going retrograde, because they actually don't do that. In reality, we do live in a heliocentric solar system, and there really is a heliocentric astrology. So having said all that, let me just read a couple of these symbols that are powerful. So when Venus stopped to go retrograde, from the Earth standpoint, it was March the 1st, and it did that at Aries 11 degrees of Aries. And the symbol from Dane Rudhyar's Astrological Mandala, now I know when I read this, you might be tempted to think of the current president of the United States, or Vladimir Putin in Russia, or Zelensky in Ukraine, or some other world leader. But think of this more, you can think of it that way, but think of it as your own ruling energy. But this is the symbology of when Venus stopped to go retrograde, which is on March the 1st. The symbol is the ruler of a nation, and the keynote is the power resulting from the formal integration of the collective desire for order. Now, before you know it, we're about to have a full moon total lunar eclipse, March 13 and 14, on the 244th anniversary of the discovery of Uranus. And we know, as many of you know, Mercury will also go into a retrograde formation, an apparent retrograde, starting on the evening of March the 14th, which is interesting because this is the day Einstein was born in 1879, and it's also the day that Stephen Hawking passed away. I think it was in 2018. It's also called Pi Day. But what's going to happen is on March 22nd, which is on a Saturday, then we're going to have a Sun-Venus conjunction. In astronomy, that is called the inferior conjunction of Sun-Venus. And inferior doesn't mean anything negative. It simply means that if we think of the solar system, when Venus is in reverse, from our standpoint, 93 million miles from the sun, the Earth, then Venus in between the sun and the Earth is in a apparent retrograde formation, and then the sun is further behind Venus. So the lineup is Earth, Venus, and sun. That's what's going to happen on March 22nd. It's going to happen at 3 degrees of Aries, and here's the second symbol for this powerful time of Venus. The cameo profile of a human being suggesting the shape of his or her country. The keynote, the sustaining power of the whole as the individual identifies himself or herself with its life. Now, this is all going to shift on April the 12th, which is a day I mentioned before. It's going to be this very powerful, every year, what's called the Shambhala Festival, focusing on the will of the divine. The sun is in Aries, the moon is in Libra. Amazingly, in synchronicity, this coming year on April 12th, which is also a Saturday, the sun will be with Chiron. And this brings back the whole focus from last year on April 8th, when we had a total solar eclipse exactly with Chiron, extremely rare, which is still affecting the United States and the world. And I've shared a lot about this in many of our podcasts, which you can also listen to at Astroscope at GreatBearEnterprises.com. Did a number of podcasts on the power of Chiron. So what's going to happen on April 12th is we not only get a full moon of Sun in Aries, conjuncting Chiron opposite the moon in Libra, but about 40 minutes after the exact full moon, which is focusing on divine will, we get Venus stopping from the Earth's point of view and going direct. And the symbol will be 25 of Pisces. Again, I'm giving you these symbols because I feel they affect all of our lives, and not just presidents, world leaders, and so on. So the symbol for 25 Pisces will be a religious organization succeeds in overcoming the corrupting influence of perverted practices and materialized ideals. Keynote, the power of the soul to intervene in the personal life and to induce necessary catharses. So I find that to be incredibly powerful. Now, what's going to happen is that, so what I'm saying is, if you have any planets or sun, moon, asteroids in your chart, and they're located at 11 of Aries, that's where Venus appeared to make its station on March the 1st, and that would be giving you extra Venusian power, hopefully to utilize on the higher levels. If you have anything around 3 of Aries, then that's where the Sun and Venus come into their conjunction on March 22nd, also a very powerful degree. So this last one, which is on the day of the full moon on April 12th, that Venus symbol 25 of Pisces, you want to look at your chart. Where do you have the sign Pisces? What house is it in? Do you have any planets around that particular area? Then that would have a very powerful Venusian subtone and energy field of all the principles of Venus, which has so much to do with love and heart and creative artistry, as well as if you study the Alice Bailey Tibetan Master DK teachings. And again, that's where I worked at a company called Lucis Publishing and Lucis Trust. And I was their editor of their magazine called The Beacon. That was back in 1974, 1976, before I went to Scotland. And they consider Venus to actually not only rule the sign of Taurus and Libra in terms of a practical level, but that on a hierarchical or soul level, Venus is considered the ruling planet of Gemini. And even on a more exalted level, if we're on that level of more what is called the monadic or logoic, shall we say, if we're operating out of pure will on a higher level and not on a lower egocentric level, Venus is actually said to rule Capricorn. So sometimes when you study esoteric astrology, and again, there is one of these books in the Tibetan Master DK Alice Bailey teachings out of 24 books. There's one called Esoteric Astrology. It's over 800 pages, and it's very fascinating. Not that easy to read because it's fairly complex. And then you can learn about what are called these 7 rays. So the last point of all this is the degree of 25 of Pisces is, shall we say, in a way, impregnated for many, many months until the next big Sun-Venus energy. And that's going to happen, oddly enough, in the United States on January 6th of 2026. So it's going to take Venus many, many months to catch up with the Sun. The Sun moves approximately 1 degree of the zodiac per day, okay, in terms of its zodiacal movement through what we call the ecliptic. But Venus can move as fast as 1 degree in 15 minutes, or 1.25 degrees per day. It's going to take all of the months from April 12th to May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December of this year for Venus will get closer and closer to make a conjunction with the Sun, particularly at the end of the year during a lot of the holidays. But then it'll actually happen on January 6th, and it'll be at 17 degrees of Capricorn, will be what is called the Sun-Venus superior conjunction. So one final point, the great astrologers Dane Rudhyar and his colleague, Dr. Mark M. Jones, considered the new moon of Sun and Venus to have just occurred or will be occurring on March 22nd. That's the day when Venus apparently going retrograde and the Sun merge, and Venus is considered retrograde, but I do not believe that it creates a whole lot of fear and worry and doubt and so on. It is a good time to always review and reflect about Venus principles in your life: love, heart, creative artistry, friendships, your value system, your finances and business areas, all the traditional areas of Venus. So we go from what's called the new phase of Venus, or the new Venus phase, which is kind of like a new moon, but it doesn't happen every month. In this case, it only happens every 18 months or every 19 months. We get a new Sun-Venus. So that's what's happening on March 22nd. And then we get the full Venus, which is more considered almost like the full moon. And that is what will occur on January 6th of 2026 at 17 degrees of Capricorn. So then look for that particular symbol in your chart. So those are 4 powerful Venus symbols. 11 of Aries, which occurred on March 1 as Venus appeared to go in reverse. And then March 22nd coming up, and let's see, today is March the 12th, so in 10 days. 3 of Aries, wherever that is in your chart, is another big Venusian area. And then you got April 12th, an enormously significant day, with the full moon, Aries and Libra, what's called the Shambhala Festival, a festival of will, purpose, and power used on a higher level. Often it's called the Shambhala Festival in esoteric circles, the will of the divine. Amazingly, the sun will be with Chiron, just like we had Sun, Moon, and Chiron on April 8th of 2024 at the total solar eclipse that moved through Central America, through Mexico, through much of the United States, and into the eastern area of Canada. And we've seen echoes of this now for many months in 2024. So many different kinds of storms. We're seeing it right now with all of these tariffs that are happening. with the incoming President Trump for the second time. This kind of war of money and tariffs and all these different things that I believe are creating, shall we say, this card that just came up as a kind of something we all have to deal with. Look at those storm clouds again. It is a 5, which represents change, to go back to this other card. The reason I'm not always doing 4-card readings, but if you see what I'm doing here, is that this card, the 4th card, and 4 represents kind of the square energy of the base of any pyramid and so on, and everything astrology. We have, when you look at the zodiac, at Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, then you start repeating the same kind of fire, earth, air, water themes. Leo, Virgo, Libra, and Scorpio. And then you finish up in the zodiac with Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. Now, 3 times, the idea of the Trinity, we have these 4 elemental qualities going through the zodiac. 3 times 4 makes the 12 signs of the zodiac, and so on. And today is the 12th. So I just find this a very fascinating reading. And you saw me do it live. So in this case, there are no major cards, but there's 2 knights. There's pentacles that represent the 5-pointed star. We see the rod suit or magic wands, and we see swords. So it's pretty, water is not coming up, but I'm sure that will come up in the next reading and so on. But remember, this is also a 6 days. So we have both the pentagram, and think of that as a higher pentagram, and the 6-pointed star, and I gave you that information. So there's our reading for now. I didn't know I was going to do 26 plus minutes, but I do it however it is supposed to be done. So thank you very much for joining me in this. We'll do another one possibly in a couple of days around the time of the full moon. I'm not sure if I will do it then, around St. Patrick's Day, or maybe at the equinox on March the 20th when the sun enters Aries, and we begin spring in the northern hemisphere. So again, many blessings to all of you, lots of Venusian inspiration across the board. And let me just straighten these out for our final look at all this. And now you know a little bit more about the Aquarian Tarot by David Palladini. He did another deck called the let's see, what's it called? The Palladini deck, I think is what it's called, which I love also. The new Palladini deck. So his first name is David Palladini. I know there's so many different tarot decks out. And again, I created Inner Child cards with Isha Lerner. I created Baseball Tarot, which unfortunately Baseball Tarot is out of print for various reasons that I think I've explained before, with Laura Phillips. So I love tarot, and I think sometimes tarot with astrology as well as numerology is a kind of great triangular system of understanding, different themes and energies for all of us. Okay, I'll let you go for now, and stay in touch. You can subscribe to this channel. You can visit greatbearenterprises.com, where you'll see you can join the cosmiccalendar.com, calendar with a K, cosmiccalendar.com, that I've been doing for almost 44 years of all the daily cycles. We have astrology reports that are available, 20 different kinds, and my consultations on astrology. So go to greatbearenterprise.com for a whole variety of astrological services. Okay, take good care, everybody. Love and blessings. Bye for now.